But first of all, who retires and then unretires and then is ultimately going to retire? I mean, who does that? Is that even? It's ridiculous. I mean, Philip to do that. But good for him. I'm happy he's doing it.
Shane. Shane, Shane. A-L-A-N-Allen. Allen.
Hey, it's NFL Week 15 preview, 38th parallel. I am your co-host, Shane, and the other co-host I have here is Mr. Allen. How are you doing, Mr. Allen?
Mr. Allen? What is that? That's what you say to old people. I'm not Mr. Allen.
Mr. Allen, how are you doing?
Ruined the show already. We hadn't even made it out of the intro.
I'm sorry.
I'll tell you what, actually, I'm happy to announce that I also retired earlier this year, but I'm also coming back out of retirement because I'm broke.
Just like Godfather Part 3. Once you think you're out, way back in.
I tell you what, if we can go the whole rest of tonight without making any other Godfather Part 3 references,
all right,
then we're doing good.
Sophia Coppola.
I'll tell you who's not doing good after Thursday night. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. For everyone who watched the game Thursday night football, Atlanta 29, Tampa Bay 28. Listen to this, Shane. The Falcons had 19 penalties, the most since I believe it was the Chiefs that had 23. That's still nowhere near the record, by the way, which was set by, and you're totally going to be shocked to hear this, the Raiders.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Listen, 19 penalties. They trailed by 14 points with less than 10 minutes to play, and they won. That's the craziest part of that stat line, is that team won the game.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Kirk Cousins, your favorite quarterback, Kirk Cousins, 30 of 44, 373 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Nice.
And somewhat less surprisingly, Bijan Robinson, 175 yards from scrimmage, 93 rushing, 82 receiving. Every single time I see a game like this, which, by the way, hats is kind of starting off with Atlanta here. Hats off to them for not throwing in the towel. Right, they've been eliminated from the playoffs. It wouldn't be shocking to see the team quit. But also, to be clear, if a team like a Falcons, who still with 4 weeks left to go in the season, if they were to completely phone it in and not win another game, there's a non-zero chance that head coach Raheem Morris gets a pink slip. I think he's one of our coaches on the hot seat that you don't hear about as much, but I think that there's a realistic possibility that he doesn't survive this Penix cousin era, but a strong finish, and I think he gets another year. With that said, Bijan Robinson is one of my favorite players to watch, which also means he's one of my most notable players that are a great player on a not so great team. So Bijan Robinson, come on home to Dallas.
Ouch.
If you please.
I don't know about that.
What, you don't think Bijan at Dallas is a good fit?
I mean, Dak would probably need the help. Sure, why not?
Yeah, we know Dak needs the help. On the other side of the ball, you have Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers started 6-2. You might recall all the way back after the first roughly third of the season, for one brief shining moment, Tampa Bay actually sat in the number 1 seed, pole position in the NFC. From the moment that happened, they have now lost 6 of their last 8, including 5 of their last 6. Jeez. To drop to not only are we not talking about a good seed, they're not even first place in the NFC South anymore, Shane. Baker Mayfield, slightly less impressive than Kirk Cousins, 19 of 34, 277 yards, 1 touchdown, but also 1 back-breaking interception that ultimately helped the Falcons come back and win that game. In the same way that I think a strong finish by the Falcons means that Raheem Morris gets another year, you might be seeing the end of the Todd Bowles era in Tampa Bay. Now, I know there's a lot of Tampa Bay fans that are not exactly going to be crying their ass out to hear that news. For his part in it, Todd Bowles took to the media after the game, and he blamed the players. Amongst the many comments he made, he said that this is the time of year where the players have to play to win. There's not much else the coaches can impart on them. It's how much they want it. Apparently, they didn't want it enough on Thursday night. By the way, not only have they lost 5 of their last 6, in what has now become a tightly contested NFC South race, they have lost back-to-back home games to the Saints and Falcons.
Oh my gosh.
So, yikes.
Oh, not to the Saints and Falcons.
But I do feel compelled to say at least one nice thing. I said something nice about Bijan. I'll say one nice thing about Tampa Bay. I do want a creamsicle jersey. I unironically would like.
They don't look too bad. Yeah, they're.
I like them. I liked both of the throwbacks in that game. The old Falcons black and red helmets, but the creamsicle jerseys, one of my favorites. We're going to move on. A little playoff update now with another week in the books. Take a look at the AFC standings really quick. We've got, of course, the New England Patriots, Pittsburgh Steelers, Jacksonville Jaguars, and Denver Broncos leading their respective divisions. Of that news, of course, the Patriots and Bills are playing this week, but the Patriots have a commanding 2-game lead in the division. The Steelers, coming off of their win over the Baltimore Ravens, are now in control again in the AFC North. The AFC South, with the Colts implosion and the injury to Daniel Jones, not only are they no longer in first place in the AFC South, they actually fell to third. The Jaguars are in first place in the South, followed by the Texans and then the Colts. And then, of course, down there at the bottom of the screen, you got the Broncos leading the Chargers and Chiefs. Chargers and Chiefs playing this week. On the NFC side, the Eagles have lost 3 straight. It's hard to even imagine. And even though they still have an 8-5 record, they only have a plus 18-point differential. Losers of 3 straight, but they still have a commanding lead in the division because it's the NFC East.
Yeah.
NFC North, of course, with the Bears being knocked off by the Packers are now back in control in the NFC North. They are now on a 4-game winning streak. And with Tampa Bay's loss, of course, Carolina has not yet played this week. Tampa Bay has, but the Carolina Panthers are now in first place in the NFC South. Look at the point differentials in the NFC South. -50, -22, -60, -109. Holy cow.
What a division.
If you don't like that, you just don't like NFC South football, Shane. And finally, the NFC West, where it's still sort of kind of anybody's game. The Rams and Seahawks have another game against each other coming up. Seahawks and 49ers have another game against each other, so it's going to sort itself. Look at the stark difference between the West and the South. Look at that.
I know.
My goodness. Finally, we're going to wrap up with talking about the percentages to make playoffs, win division, earn by, etc. So the Patriots and Broncos are pretty much for sure in the playoffs at this point. And both are overwhelming favorites to win their divisions. But the first round, or the number 1 seed in the first week bye, that is still up in the air. The Jags are now in control of their playoff destiny, and control of their division destiny as well. The Bills, probably looking at a wild card at best at this point, unless there's a total implosion by the Patriots. Texans looking pretty good and still have a chance to win the division. And of course, followed by Chargers. With Steelers Ravens, it's the same story as before. One will beat the other and the winner will win the division. And that's the only way they're getting in the playoffs. But the Steelers are currently in the pole position. And then, of course, you have the Colts, who, boy, they're just trying to figure out a way to get to the finish line. And you'll notice the Chiefs didn't make the graphic because they don't. Finally, on the NFC side, the Rams and Seahawks and 49ers and Packers and Eagles are all pretty close to locks for the playoffs at this point. Whereas the Rams still got a little bit of work to do to win the division. The Seahawks are still trailing behind. The 49ers are probably out of the divisional race, sad to say, Shane. But they're going to be seeing those teams again in the future. Whereas Green Bay is now in control of the NFC North. And of course, again, with the Eagles, it would require a complete implosion to lose the division, which would also certainly mean they would miss the playoffs. The Bears, it's surprising after all of those wins they racked up, 1 loss against Green Bay, and you're suddenly only a little bit above a coin toss. That's how quickly things can change. And then, of course, you see Tampa Bay and Carolina. The winner of those games is going to win the division. The loser is going to be out. And probably the biggest story for me this whole season is, did you think that the Lions would be here at this point on a knife's edge, needing to win their games? Otherwise, they don't even make the postseason.
Yeah.
Kind of surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. NFC North, that's a tight race. And it literally, like, basically almost just one game pretty much is just the dividing between, and that tie the Packers have. Oh man, that's looking good right now, because if they didn't have a tie, they'd be tied right now I know we don't like ties, but it makes it interesting. So, give it that, I guess.
The tie is great when you ought to be a game up anyway. The tie is terrible when you ought to be a game down anyway. That's kind of how that works.
Right.
Now, here's the interesting thing. You might remember that only like a week ago, we had said that there was only a handful of teams that had been eliminated from the playoffs, and 0 teams had actually clinched a playoff berth. And now, as we go into week 15, there is still technically 0 teams that have clinched a berth, because there's such a log jam at the top of each conference. However, we do have a couple of clinching scenarios. In the AFC, the Broncos are in the playoffs with a win over the Packers, or if the Texans and Colts lose. The Patriots can not only make the playoffs, but they can win the AFC East if they beat the Bills. It's just as simple as that. Beat the Bills in New England, they win the AFC East. What's done is done. Yeah. But they also would get a playoff berth with the Texans and Colts lost. On the NFC side, it's just the Rams. If the Rams win, they're in the playoffs. But they still can't close the division until a future week. And that's it. There are no other NFC teams that have clinched a playoff berth yet or have a chance to, other than the Rams.
Wow. The NFC West, I know you were saying, the Niners don't have a chance. They still have a chance, but it's very small. But, man, I don't know. The Rams have just been probably the best team in the NFC, arguably, and the Seahawks are right there too. So, the NFC West is just an absolute dogfight. Other than the Cardinals, Cardinals, whatever. We'll see you next year. Maybe we can get back to the Super Bowl like you did last time. But
it's what's so interesting is that the Rams. Everyone views the Rams as a much better, much more consistent team than, say, for instance, the Bears. But the Bears racked off a lot of straight wins. And a week ago, they were sitting in the number 1 spot in the NFC. Mm-hmm. But and also remember, they took that spot because the Rams had that just head-scratching loss to the Carolina Panthers. And it's glass half empty, glass half full. Glass half empty or glass half full is if you're going to have a stinker at the end of the year, you got it out of the way, as opposed to doing that like in the divisional round of the playoffs. That's not when you wanted to have that game. Yeah. On the other hand, it's this is why no teams have clinched their playoff berth yet. You can't trust anybody. Look at the Eagles. The Eagles could still theoretically miss the playoffs. They've lost so many games. They're the defending Super Bowl champions, and their roster isn't even that much different.
Oh, the Cowboys still have a chance to win the NFC East. Let's go.
Just stop it. Stop it. Some of our predictions are going to turn out to be right. That's not going to be one of them. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen.
It's looking pretty close.
There's not an E next to their name on the standings yet, but there's going to be very shortly. Moving on from that, we're moving on to the Week 15 Q&A, and of course, the absolute huge story going into tomorrow. I just saw the breaking news right before we started the show. So not only was Philip Rivers called up on Wednesday and signed to the practice squad of the Indianapolis Colts following the injury of Daniel Jones and a knee injury to a backup Riley Leonard. Now he was activated to the active roster today, Saturday, and sources are saying he is in line to start tomorrow. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. 44-year-old Philip Rivers, who hasn't played football for 5 years because he was actually a semifinalist for the Hall of Fame this year. It's a 5-year wait between when you retire and when you're eligible for the Hall, so it's 5 years. Now that he's been promoted to the active roster to start at Seattle tomorrow, That actually means he's now no longer eligible for the Hall of Fame until 2031.
Oh.
Now here's the thing, Shane. I want you to give me your honest opinion. It's a fun story.
Okay, honest.
It's a fun story.
Yeah.
But he's 44 years old. The Colts' own report said that he, quote, threw the ball well, but there's conditioning concerns with his tryout. He did have a couple of good practices this week. Everybody's fired up in the locker room. He was working with the first team offense. Now he's set to start. I don't think it. You know how there's that thing in the fight game that they always say that the power is the last thing to go. Like you get these heavyweight fighters that earlier in their careers, maybe they leaned on jiu-jitsu, maybe they were wrestlers, maybe they were quick on their feet. They tend to lose a lot of that. But the last thing to go is their power. They still got a mean right hook, but they don't have much else. Well, Phillip Rivers, they're saying he could still sling it. And I believe him. I bet he can still throw the ball over them their mountains. But will Phillip Rivers survive contact with the first defender that touches him tomorrow? Honestly.
Yeah, that's oh man, that's gonna be the big test, right? Just to see what happens when he gets that, not just a little push, not a little touch, but I mean like an actual like a guy right in the freaking neck or something. Like he gets that knock right in his head or something. That's gonna be the big. Oh man, this guy still got it. Or what were the Colts thinking bringing this old grandpa back on the field? And I mean, who's other quarterbacks they have? Anthony Richardson is injured, right? He's on the injured reserve, I believe, right? Daniel Jones, obviously, he's hurt now for the rest of the season. And now Riley Leonard, who I think is a rookie, he's probably like, oh man, it's my shot. All right, let's go. And then they like, oh, Phillip Rivers. Okay, I guess I gotta wait again some more,
Well, he's got a knee. So first of all, Riley Leonard's never going to be a starter in the NFL. That's never going to happen. But he could be a backup in the NFL. But he's got a sore knee. The word on the street is that he could play, but they're probably it's probably not wise for him to play. So he's probably going to be in like the emergency QB position.
Okay.
And they're bringing in Rivers. Part of it is that it's that weird time of year. We're well past the trade deadline. Sometimes you see things like this happen and you see everybody on social media screaming, well, they should just go get Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco played for the Colts for a year or two. They should go get Joe Flacco. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Joe Flacco is on the roster of the Cincinnati Bengals. They would have to cut him so that he was just on the street for him to be signed by the Colts. And why would the Bengals help one of their AFC rivals get a quarterback late? It's just not going to happen. Yeah. So they only had the choice of getting someone off the street. I think what's more interesting about it is there's always the practice squad QBs. There's always the young QBs who played in the preseason who didn't make an active roster for the year. And all those guys are still kind of floating out there in the breeze, hoping that maybe next year they'll get another chance to try out. And the Colts did, for their part, they did audition something like 10 different people, but they ultimately landed on Rivers. So the question is that does that, I guess, it's like, we're going to do a really quick, Chad, is this real? Do you believe that that's more a testament that Rivers has still got it? Or do you believe that's more of a testament of all those other people really sucked? And so Rivers is just the best option they have left.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it could be both. Maybe Rivers does actually still have it and the other QB suck. Was one of the names that they called and had tried out, was one of their names Colin Kaepernick?
No. He will never play in the NFL.
I guess the NFL is still racist. Racism is still not been cured, ladies and gentlemen.
You might have seen they also didn't call Cam Newton either, and apparently Cam Newton was upset that he didn't at least get a flyer.
No, they've seen him on ESPN once. They're like, no, we don't want that on our sideline.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, it's not like it's a huge mystery. He did play the 1 year in Indianapolis and they made the playoffs that year, which is pretty amazing. Yeah. He had decent stats. He clearly wasn't the same quarterback, but it wasn't the worst final year that a quarterback's ever had. And he had a prior relationship with Shane Steichen from his years with the Chargers. And so the connection makes sense. It is the likelihood that he can come in and run the offense there because he has the rapport. Sure, it is. But the reality of it is that he's 44 years old and he wasn't like 5 years ago. He already was a statue. But now he's 44 He hasn't been conditioned for football for that many years. And this is the last thing that I'll keep in mind before I give you the final thought on this.
Okay.
Daniel Jones, right?
Right.
Daniel Jones had a hairline fracture in his fibula.
Yeah, it's not
and
good.
and then shoulder soreness, and then he tears his Achilles. The guy who had all of those injuries playing for this team with this line is now charged with protecting Phillip Rivers.
Oh no!
You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh! How many pass attempts do you think the over under 10? What's the over under on how many pass attempts he's gonna have?
Well, that's the thing too, is that it's easy for you and I who have no skin in the game and we're just a couple of schmucks to say, well, if it were me, I would hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor 30 times and I would call nothing but dump offs and screens. It's like, yeah, you know who else knows that? The Seattle defense.
Yeah, right.
They also know that.
Oh man, Seattle.
Oh
my god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God,
what a game.
Suspect it's going to be a long, but again, it's a fun story. I hope it works out. I don't expect a lot. I hope something happens.
Right.
Moving on from that, the other story this week, also QB related, some ominous words out of Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow. He kind of gave fans a heart attack this week with some comments he made at a midweek presser. Take a look at this.
It certainly doesn't change my desire to win. If I want to keep doing this, I have to have fun doing it. I've been through a lot, and if it's not fun, then what am I doing it for? So that's the mindset I'm trying to bring to the table.
How much fun are you?
To say that it wasn't just football. He's dealing with some things both on and off the field. And I know his teammates have already come to his defense saying it's a nothing burger, chiefly among those being Jamar Chase, say that he thinks that Burrow has just as much fire and competitive nature as he's ever had. The comparisons that I saw on social media is everyone saying, oh, is Joe Burrow going to be the next Andrew Luck? And what they meant by that is that, well, Joe Burrow's had some injuries and maybe he retires early. But to be fair, Andrew Luck didn't just have some injuries. Like, he had some critical, debilitating injuries that he never fully healed from. That man couldn't play football again if he wanted to. Today, he couldn't. Like, there's a reason why they're not calling Andrew Luck. They're calling Phillip Rivers. Andrew Luck can't play.
Yeah.
So it's not quite the same thing. But what do you think? What do you think the chance? Give me a percent chance. What's the percent chance that Joe Burrow demands out of Cincinnati in the next year or two?
I mean, if he keeps getting knocked down on his ass that as many times as he has behind that Bengals O-line, it's got to be at least 70%, I would think, because it's not fun to. I mean, I would imagine it's not fun to be constantly running for your life for, oh, my O-line's not going to protect me again. That's great. How are we going to have any good chance of winning if I can't throw the ball to Jamar Chase or T. Higgins? Two of the best players in the league, and I'm constantly getting sacked because the O-line. Okay, so the organization could pay for the receivers and me, which maybe that's partially their fault because they're demanding all that money, but they can't get a good O-line. They can't establish a good O-line. They can't coach a good O-line because If he was constantly winning, I don't think he'd be saying those words. Winning really helps a lot,
Yeah. Well, like if you're just looking at the focus of just this year, of course, obviously he missed a lot of leagues with the turf toe. But
right.
From a Bengals standpoint, their defense is terrible. Their defense is bottom 3.
Sure.
This is one of the worst defenses in the NFL.
Yes.
And so now it's like you have to have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Chase Brown to even have a chance to keep up, because your defense is going to give up 30 points a game, right?
Right.
And then on top of that, there has been offensive line issues the entire time he's been in Cincinnati. It's so funny to remember that the one season that he had, like, he played a complete year, relatively injury free, and his defense was at least like not bottom quartile.
Mediocre.
They weren't good. They weren't good. But a lot of people have this weird rosy colored glasses that the year they made the Super Bowl, they had like the defense balled out that year. No, they were something like 22nd, right? But right now they're like 30th, 31st even.
Yeah.
So when this team had a okay O-line and a 22nd ranked defense, Joe Burrow took, and this is the Bengals, right? We're not talking about the Cowboys or 49ers or Patriots or Steelers or Chiefs. It's the Bengals. He took the Bengals, who could just manage a mediocre team outside of him in the receiver room, to the Super Bowl. Right. So it's on the one hand, you're thinking, how are you wasting this guy? How can you not figure out a way to put a better product on the field? And on the other hand, it's that, well, because I just pulled it up while you were talking. He signed. The deal he signed was only just in September of 2023. So only a couple of years ago. 5-year, $275 million extension. At the time, he was the highest paid player. I mean, he's no Dak Prescott, am I right? But at the time, he was the highest paid player. So you're saying you feel like the chances, just based on that, the chances are pretty good if the Bengals don't organizationally do something to restructure their team. The problem is the Bengals are the same thing as like the Tennessee Titans. They're a smaller market team. They don't like to spend money. They don't like to invest in the future. So they have Joe Burrow. I mean, it'd be like if the Titans had Joe Burrow instead of Cam Ward. If the Bengals had Cam Ward, the Bengals would have 0 wins. No one would be talking about them, and it would be business as usual. If the Titans had Joe Burrow, they would still be bad. But we would be having this. It would be, what do we got to do to help this guy out, other than get him the hell out of Nashville? Well, that kind of brings us to the next part. Is as soon as those comments came out, every Tom, Dick, and Harry on social media is all clamoring, well, Joe Burrow should be traded to this team. Joe Burrow should go to that team. I give him, 3 first rounds plus this player and that player. The reality of it is that, yes, I don't think, and I mean this in a bad, I like Joe Burrow. I like watching him play. I think he's a great quarterback. Yeah. The reality of it is the Bengals are a crap organization. I don't think that things are going to change in Cincinnati. However, I don't see a realistic avenue for him to go to a better team. There are worse teams out there that could put the resources together for a trade. But why would he want to, if his problem is that he's not having fun and he wants to win, why would he go from the Bengals to the Jets? Why would he go from the Bengals to the Raiders? Right. Those moves don't make any sense. So what makes sense in your mind for Joe Burrow? And please don't say retire. That's sad.
Well, what you're saying with people saying, "Oh, trade this and that," or whatever. As the resident Niners guy, I've seen that. Hey, trade Brock Purdy and 2 first rounds, and it was like, wait, hold on a second, wait.
Yeah,
wait. So the Bengals are going to want strong arm Joe Burrow for the guy who's mobile and has a noodle arm. Brock Purdy. You want to switch that with Joe Burrow? I don't know. Is Cincinnati going to want that? And I mean, I'm sure Joe would like to play for 49ers. I don't know, but
so one thing is that, like, because a lot of the most recent example, right, is always going to be the Lions and the Rams and Goff, right? That the Rams trade the Rams come up short in the Super Bowl. They know that they have this elite defense. They know they have Aaron Donald. Yeah. And they're like, what can we do to push us over the top? We don't feel like Jared Goff is that guy. Maybe that's a bit disrespectful to him, although, I mean, you can't say they were wrong. They trade for Matthew Stafford. They win the Super Bowl. Good on them. But Goff goes to Detroit. Well, Goff was still a young enough guy and at least a decent enough quarterback that they could take all those picks, all those resources, and they used that to build the Lions roster that they have today. So the question is that, so for one, Joe Burrow is not Jared Goff. Like, Joe Burrow is not even Matthew Stafford. Joe Burrow is the good quarterback. Like, Brock Purdy is still young. Yeah. And I don't know where mentally you rank like Brock Purdy and Jared Goff. I don't know. I feel like Purdy still being so young, I think that the jury's still out. But Jared Goff is at least a proven commodity at this point, albeit maybe not the most elite.
Right.
But Matthew Stafford was at the end. I mean, he is still playing today, so I shouldn't say he was at the end of his career. But it was believed that he's in the twilight of his career when he left Detroit to go to the Rams, to LA, right?
Right.
Joe Burrow's not in the twilight of his career. Joe Burrow's got, assuming he wanted to play, he's got a lot of great years ahead of him. So what I'm getting at is that if the Rams had to sell the whole farm to get Matthew Stafford in the twilight of his career, what would you have to give it Joe Burrow? The answer is I don't think you can. I don't think there's a winning team out there who's ready to compete for the Super Bowl next year who can afford a $275 million Joe Burrow contract to go along with, 3 or 4 first round picks, some players. Like, look, if you're, and then the other side of that coin is that if you're the Bengals, let's say that trade was possible. There was a team out there that could give you a quarterback who you could at least a placeholder.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not calling Goff a placeholder, please, before anyone gets, I'm not saying that, but you at least get a placeholder plus a whole bunch of picks. Could the Bengals organization actually build a better team with those picks than they could just trying to build around Joe Burrow? My answer would be the reason why we're having this conversation is because the Bengals aren't a good franchise and they don't know how to build a team. So if they couldn't build a team around Joe Burrow, how could they build a team without Joe Burrow, but with more picks? I don't think they could.
Well, I see here in the chat, someone's talking about what if Carolina got him? I guess Bryce Young, the guy in Carolina, probably not. Right. But does Carolina have those assets to go, Hey, we'll trade you Bryce Young and a bunch of draft picks for Joe Burrow and some random, mid-round draft pick or whatever. Could that be a possibility? Maybe. Because, look, you're in the NFC South. Joe Burrow's probably, okay, so if I go to Carolina or any team in the NFC South, I could probably take this team to the divisional. I can make this team a division winner. I could probably take this team pretty far. Why not? Let's see. I got an ego. I got some confidence in myself. I can show the world that I can do this still. I can go from being Carolina isn't a great franchise either. So it's not like he's going from Cincinnati to Dallas or something. Jerry Jones still there. So but you know what I'm saying? Some big name organization, right? Carolina is just some organization that's been around for just over 20 years now. But I don't know. That would be, as of right now, that would be an easy outlook.
So right now, the top 3 teams that are mentioned as being the most realistic, it's not most realistic in terms of cap space, trade stock, that sort of thing, are Jets, Raiders, Cardinals.
Oh, come on.
So it doesn't matter if those teams can afford him. Yeah. If he either wants to win or retire, why would he be a Jet, a Raider, or a Cardinal? They're not going to win more the games there. One other team, 2 other teams that they mentioned, one being the Steelers. I can go ahead and tell you the Steelers are out because they would not trade him to a division rival. There's a 0% chance that they would send him across the street to go play for a team that they're going to play twice a year. And the last one is the Minnesota Vikings. And the problem with the Vikings is number one, they would have some salary cap issues.
Yeah.
And number 2, they're basing that entirely on the fact that Justin Jefferson's there, right? He would be reunited with Justin Jefferson. Yeah. And the fact that, last year Sam Darnold balled out. So imagine what Joe Burrow could do in that offense. It's like, I get that in theory, but I feel like this year has demonstrated perfectly that the Vikings are also a team. Like, the Vikings are no closer than the Bengals currently are with Joe Burrow. Right. The Vikings with Joe Burrow, I think, might be a little bit better than the Bengals with Joe Burrow, but they wouldn't be a lot closer to being a Super Bowl contender with just him and nothing else. And remember, any team that gets him isn't going to have much else because they're going to have to give a lot to get him.
Right.
So you have to be going to a team that basically is stocked and ready to make a run right now.
Ooh, I know a team that's like that, but I've already mentioned them, so I won't mention them again.
Well, they're not in the market. They can't afford him. They don't have the have the trade capital or the money, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's lots of teams that we could sit here and say, those teams aren't bad. Just imagine if they had a great quarterback, how good they would be.
The Bears.
Think of teams. The Bears, yeah. Well, I don't think they can. I don't think they have the stock for him. I don't think they could afford him either. But I mean, I would admit that a Bears defense plus someone who completes more than half of their throws, like Caleb Williams does, that would probably be better.
Make him interesting. For sure, yeah.
But again, there's no point in hypotheticals of what teams would look good with Joe Burrow. It's a matter of who can afford him, and the teams that can afford him are not better teams than the Bengals. I just hope that I guess all I can say is that I hope that if he's going to demand a trade, that there are suitors out there that can actually manage expectations with him. And otherwise, I hope he doesn't just retire. I mean, I love to watch him play. I think he's a great quarterback.
Yeah. So one last thing on that. If he does demand a trade, and you just mentioned those three teams, Jets, Raiders, Cardinals, why? Why would you want to get traded? Because those three teams are terrible. Why would you go from a terrible franchise to an even worse franchise? So
that's the point we're making. He's not gonna. If that's the reason he wants out. If his main issue is not, it's not a matter of I'm hurt. It's not a matter of I'm hurt. It's not a matter of I'm a big crybaby. It's a matter of I'm not having fun. I want to win. And so I feel like what's most likely is that he's going to stay a Bengal for at least another few seasons, at least further into his contract extension. Mm-hmm. And I base that mostly on the fact that there's nowhere for him to go, but also partly on the fact of this is just his way of vocalizing to the organization, hey, I want to see some action taking place. I'll put it this way. If management does nothing, if their draft next April is garbage, if they make no noticeable changes, or if they just fire Zach Taylor and hire some random retread who's totally unproven, and they decide to play 1990s football or some ridiculous, then I could see then him saying, all right, I'm out of here. Yeah, good luck to you guys in the future. I'm going to head to the house. With that said, we're going to move on to this week's picks to wrap up the show. We've got 5 really awesome games this week. I guess at this time of the season, it's like every single week there's some real bangers with playoff implication. Yeah. We're going to start with the AFC West. The Los Angeles Chargers are going on the road to play the Kansas City Chiefs. Shane, the Chiefs are a losing team. They're 6-7. They just got beat at home 20-10 by the Texans, and yet Vegas has the Chiefs as a 6-point favorite.
Oh my God!
Over the Chargers. Man, what do you think about that?
Man, being in the Super Bowl really helps these Chiefs. They're 6-7. They're still favorites over the. No, come on. I think the Chargers are gonna smack that. They're gonna beat them. Come on, please do it just one time. Just do it.
The Chargers haven't always looked great. I feel like they're potential frauds. I feel like they're playoff frauds. I think they're going to go to the playoffs. They're going to lose, and that's going to be in the season. It's not going to be that shocking. Mm-hmm. With that said, this is the end of the Chiefs season. It's over anyway. They basically have next to no chance of making the playoffs at this point. Right. But they will officially get the little E next to their name after this week. They're losing to the Chargers. Right. Buffalo Bills are going on the road to play the New England Patriots. The Bills. It wouldn't hurt the Bills to have a win, but at this point, they're playing for the wild card unless they not only beat the Patriots, but the Patriots also implode the rest of the way. Believe it or not, Shane, the 11-2 Patriots, who already own a win over Buffalo in Buffalo, are 1.5 point underdogs to the Bills, according to Vegas.
Wow.
What do you think about that? Is this just bias for the popular teams and players? Is that what this is? Is it Mahomes bias and Josh Allen bias?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we mentioned it before in the last week where the Patriots' schedule has been relatively some of their opponents have been great. So maybe that's part of it. But
okay.
I mean, I think the Bills really are going to come in hot. And I can see them definitely winning this game for sure. And I think it'll be close. I think that plus 1.5 is really good right there.
In Foxborough, The Bills getting embarrassed by the Patriots earlier in the year. And by the way, if it wasn't for that awful pick six at the end of the game, the Bills don't even beat the Bengals last week.
No.
So I'm going to say the Patriots just win without the points. I think they just win outright. Green Bay Packers coming off their win over the Bears, number one team in the NFC North, still playing for the number one seed potentially at the Denver Broncos, a really, really high profile NFC AFC game late in the season. The Broncos also 11-2, also with a ton of wins back to back to back, also still playing for number one seed. They're also 2.5 point underdogs in Denver. Do you find that surprising?
That is surprising. I mean, Sean Payton, he's a proven head coach. We know what he's capable of. Disregard some of the controversy there. And Bo Nix, he's looked pretty good in some aspects. I think 2.5, that makes it really close. I think with the points, I think that Denver can definitely overcome that.
This is really interesting because I know that the Packers have had a couple of really impressive wins recently. The win over the Lions at Thanksgiving, which was a sweep, was huge. Yeah. And then this past week's win over the Bears was huge.
That's a good one. Yeah.
And so I understand that they're the hot team once again, and that they're back in the running for a top seed once again. At the same time, Denver, I think Denver's definitely a lot stronger team, and they have a genuine strong home field advantage, and Green Bay does too, but it's in Denver. I think Denver is the way that I said the Chargers are potentially frauds. Like, they have a good record, but they've looked kind of iffy in some of those wins against bad teams. Denver is similar but better. They're a better team than the Chargers, but they also have suffered from nail-biter wins against inferior competition, and the Packers are not inferior competition. So I'm actually going to say Green Bay goes in there and wins it.
Let's go.
The next one, Detroit Lions, who at this point, they're just holding on for dear life for a playoff spot, probably out of the running entirely for NFC North. We're just talking playoffs. Going on the road to play the Los Angeles Rams, back on track after last week, back in the driver's seat for the number one seed. Shane, the Rams are 6-point favorites over the Lions. What do you think?
That sounds good to me. I mean, the Rams, like I said before, I think the Rams are probably the best team in the NFC. Sorry, Green Bay Packers fans, but I mean, the Rams are just. And I know they lost to the Panthers, but I mean, even, every great team can have that little stinker every once in a while. But I still think the Rams are I think they're going to destroy their Lions, to be honest.
I think the Lions have the kind of offense to have a repeat of the Panthers game against the Rams. The problem is they don't have a defense. Right. I don't think the Lions defense can stifle Stafford, Nakua, the way that the Panthers did.
What a player.
So, you know what? I'm going to say the Rams win. Yeah, I know, right? Nakua, Bijan, Joe Burrow, you are all Dallas Cowboys.
What a dream.
I'm going to say the Rams win, but I'm actually going to say they don't cover. I think the Lions need it a lot more just to survive to keep their playoff hopes alive. And I think they're not going to get it, but I think it's going to be close. And finally, oh boy, you want to talk about big lines. We mentioned it earlier. The Indianapolis Colts with Phillip Rivers after a couple of practices, 44 years old. He's also a granddad, by the way.
Yep.
Coming back after 5 years just to go on the road and play the Seattle Seahawks, who are 13.5-point favorites. That's an awfully big line, Shane. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, look, if I'm the Seattle Seahawks and they end up losing this game to Phillip Rivers, who hasn't played in almost 5 years, I don't know. I would just completely just end the organization after that. Like, really, we lost to Phillip Rivers, who hasn't played in almost no. We're no longer the Seattle Seahawks. We're going to be someone else now. We don't want to be known as the Seattle Seahawks anymore. So, but I mean, 13.5 points. Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, oh gosh, you would think that just because it's just under 2 touchdowns, you would think they would be able to at least get that, right? They would cover that, right? Right?
I know it's a really huge line. My general rule of thumb is I don't bet on games where there's that big of a line in professional football. With that said, do you remember that game earlier in the year where Seattle had something like a 30-point lead at like halftime? I think it was an early game against the Texans when they were still in their death spiral. And like Sam Darnold started like 18 of 18 or something like that. So yes, is what I'm saying. The Seattle's going to win, and I actually think they're going to cover. Do you have a final thought?
I do have a final thought. Listen to this tweet. This is a good tweet.
Okay.
You're going to love this because this is kind of interesting. Since the merger, only 2 quarterbacks have thrown for exactly 364 passing yards in their 3rd career start.
I already know what you're going to say. Just stop it. Just stop it.
Let's go.
I already know. Can I guess that it's Shadur Sanders and Tom Brady?
How did you know? How did you know? Shadur Sanders is
Just
Tom Brady. Come on.
Stop it.
Know this already.
Stop it. No. I'll tell you my final thought. Everyone, it's a feel-good story about Phillip Rivers. Quick note about Daniel Jones. Sources are saying that after surgery, it looks like that he will be ready for training camp next year. This is very interesting to consider. I know they started strong. I know that at least it appears that the regression to the mean for him around the middle of the season was because it turned out he had a break in his leg that had gone undiagnosed. I get that. With that said, people who were at least a few years old might remember that the last time Daniel Jones seemed to play just well enough to get a contract extension was with the Giants, and the Giants rued the day that they paid him that money because they couldn't get rid of him fast enough. It's fun. I'm not saying that history is going to repeat itself. I'm just saying that the Colts today are in the exact same position the Giants had been that year, just a few years ago, with the idea of, well, it seems like Daniel Jones is the guy of the future, but it's borderline. Are we really willing to make a major long-term financial commitment if we're not 100% sure? The Giants did. It blew up in their face. Will the Colts? Have to wait and see.
I don't know. Well, good luck to all the teams out there. And Phillip Rivers, I bet he does feel good because he has 10 kids. So, all right.
Get back on that health insurance.
Oh, yeah. All right. See you later. 13.5 points. My God.